It's Thursday at 10 o'clock, which means it's time for the Hospitality Hotline. Thank you for being here. If you are here, thank you for watching this later, if you're watching it later. My name is Catherine Sasser, and every Thursday at 10, I answer your hospitality questions live. You can always submit a question ahead of time, which is where we get the questions that we're going to talk about each week. And then if you have a question in the moment, for sure, submit it, and I'll do my best to answer it as we go. Pull up a chair, take a deep breath, because this week is kind of a doozy. I got two questions that are so rich, so multifaceted, that I have Post-it notes to help me navigate these answers, because they are not easy. So thank you to the two of you that submitted these questions. I'm up to the challenge. Let's start, let's just dive in. Let's start with the hard one. I'm gonna read this verbatim because I think it's important for you to hear this question. How do you navigate the holidays when there are 4 different sets of parents/step parents that do not or cannot be in the same room? Do you split the holidays up so each has their own time with their 18-month-old grandbaby, or tell them to suck it up and only host one event? I do not know your name, but dear God, this is a fabulous question. It is full of hospitality hotline hot buttons, for lack of a better word, and I'm here to do the best I can. I want to say a couple of things. I'm going to make a few assumptions. I'm going to assume that this 18-month-old grandbaby is the only grandbaby, that we're not dealing with any other grandchildren. This is probably, it sounds like, the first grandchild. I'm also going to assume, and this may be incorrect and might change some of the way I would answer this, but I'm going to assume everybody's living in town. That may or may not be the case. But let's talk about how many issues we really have to address within this question. Number 1, Post-it number 1, limits and boundaries. Number 2, personal responsibility. Number 3, precedent, setting a holiday precedent. Number 4, I want to talk about suck it up. Number 5, marriage and being on the same team. And number 6, and this is where I want to start, what do you want? Okay, here's the hospitality angle on this. Hospitality is all about creating space and anticipating need, not just for other people, but for other people and yourself. And there is no time when this is more heightened and more needed and more important than in the holidays or around some big family event like a wedding, a funeral, a birthday. But this is holidays. And so before you get anywhere into the details of what this holiday complicated family situation is going to be, you need to ask yourself, what do I want? And assuming you're married, I'm going to assume you're married, you need to do that within the context of your marriage, because there's something that you probably want as an individual for this holiday and what you want this to look like. But you're not operating by yourself if you're married. You have a partner, and you and your partner need to be on the same team. If you and your partner are not on the same team, this issue becomes hugely more complicated, and I'm sorry, like, that can be really difficult. That can be its own, I don't know, minefield, for lack of a better word. But let's assume that you guys can get on the same page and remember that you love each other and that family is hard and you're there to be a support for each other. What do you want? What do you want from the holiday? Do you want, let me give you some examples. Do you want as little event as possible to maximize exposure for your child with their grandparents, one and done, out the door? Do you want peace and tranquility as much as possible? Meaning, great, we will host 14 events to keep, this parent away from this parent in the same room, and it's more important to me to not have the drama and the conflict, so we'll have 4 dinners. What do you want? Do you want to put everything that you remember about the holidays aside and only love and serve the people that are in your life, even if they're complicated? It's a very noble one. You are the only person that can answer this question. What do you want? It's not easy. But once you do this and you have an idea of what you want, then you can proceed forward, because proceeding forward without understanding what you want is just going to feel conflicted and confusing for you and everyone else. Which brings me to the next post-it. Let's talk about personal responsibility. It is no one's job but yourself. It's no one's job but yours to be responsible for yourself. This is hospitality through the lens of creating space and anticipating need for yourself with the heart of being able to serve and love others well. We will talk a lot more about this as we progress in this hotline, but you're responsible for yourself. That means you are not responsible for the feelings, emotions, triggers, expectations, anything else, thoughts, feelings, all of it for anyone else, including your partner, your children, your in-laws, your step-in-laws, your parents, your neighbors, your friends. You are only responsible for the thoughts and feelings of yours. Like, you can't make someone else feel something. You can't make someone think something. Your personal responsibility, I didn't call it, a therapist taught me, it's your hula hoop. What's inside your hula hoop? What's outside your hula hoop? So I would encourage you to start by taking the expectations of other people, getting it out of your hula hoop, and remember, no matter what you do, whether they love it or hate it, how they feel about something is outside your hula hoop of personal responsibility. It's tricky, but true. So if you've answered the question, what do you want? And you've gotten on the same team with your partner, and you recognize the only thing you're responsible for are your own thoughts and feelings and actions, then it's time to set some limits and boundaries. Limits and boundaries are going to be your friend in navigating tricky hospitality, holiday-related family drama. How far are you willing to go in expending time and energy, emotionally, physically, otherwise, at the holidays? You need to set a limit. You need to set a boundary with your partner, all of this with your partner, and then you need to hold to that. So maybe it looks like this. Let me just create a scenario that this might apply, might not. Maybe you're willing to do as much as required and host as many events and be as many places as possible up to and including Christmas morning. But from noon on Christmas Day on, you are unavailable to everyone else because you want to be with you want to be in your own home. You want to be with your child. You want to enjoy Christmas night by yourself. Or maybe you want to enjoy Christmas Eve and Christmas morning with your husband and child, and you're going to protect that. And then from 2 o'clock on Christmas Day, moving on, your time is up for grabs and you're willing to be present and do whatever it takes. This is a practical limit, a practical boundary. But just saying that you're open all the time to whatever anybody wants is gonna make you feel a little bit at the mercy of everyone else's time. And remember, it's your job to protect your resources and your time. So decide what you're willing to give, decide what you're willing to not give, and then operate within that. So let's say you do need to have 4 events so that everybody can have their own exposure to the grandbaby, everybody kind of has their own quote unquote Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. Decide the timeline, decide what you and your family want to say yes to, and then stick to it and protect it and let everybody know. None of this is easy, but nobody said it would be. Okay, quickly, let's talk about precedent. If this is the only grandbaby and this is the first year and this is like everybody's kind of figuring out what this is going to look like, I want to encourage you to remember that you are setting a precedent for holidays to come. So this is not the year that is going to be like, well, we did it that one year, now we're going to do it different next year. You're going to have this battle next year and the year after if you don't decide now kind of how you want this to be. So every decision you make this year, if this is the first year, you're setting a precedent for how things are going to go. It doesn't mean they can't change. It just means that, people start to expect certain things. Well, you did it this way last year and it worked great. Why are you changing it this year? That's an extra layer of navigating that can be tricky. So I encourage you to think long term on this. I encourage you to really think like, okay, 10 years down the road, what do we want this to look like? And remember that what you're deciding this year is setting a precedent. Lastly, I want to address the suck it up verbiage, which I get. I'm not offended by this. But telling them to suck it up and only host one event. Okay, what I think is being asked here is it okay for me and my family to look at the crazy, complicated dynamics and say, all of you as adults can get over yourself and be in the same room for 2 hours and enjoy a holiday meal together to keep us from having to be in 4 separate rooms, 2 to 3 hours each room, and exhaust ourselves? Suck it up, be adults, be in the room. The meal is at 2 o'clock on this day. It is okay. If that falls in line with all the other things that I've talked about, your heart and your marriage and your precedent and your boundaries, and you decide, yeah, we're gonna do one big event, and everybody who walks in the door with some baggage can check it at the door or whatever, they can be inside their own hula hoop, you can 100% do that. That might be the simplest, messiest, craziest, so glad it's over way to approach this. I'm sure there will be tension. I'm sure there will be comments. I'm sure there will be stress or whatever, but it might be easier just to get it over with. My point of encouragement here is that instead of the suck it upness of it that you're communicating to everyone involved, is to model for them what it looks like to have healthy boundaries, healthy personal responsibility, an idea of what you want and how to get it, and to consider this option, if you choose to take this option, a way to model hospitality instead of an opportunity to tell them to suck it up. Because let me tell you, if your heart is that you want to tell them to suck it up because you're angry, which I get, that's not a heart of hospitality, and that may not be the best option. But if you can proceed and wrap your head and your heart around, yeah, we're gonna have one event. I recognize all the baggage and complication that that's gonna bring with it, but our family is going to model healthy relationships by changing the way things have been done in our family. Then carry on, and I applaud you, and I will be here to answer the follow-up questions that are sure to come, because that is a long road, and I speak from experience when I say, like, we've dabbled in that in our family a little bit of changing the way things are done, and I run a business that's run a little bit differently than other businesses. Like, you can change the conversation if you want to, but just know that your heart needs to not be, I'm going to do it this way to tell them to suck it up, and instead your heart needs to be, I'm going to do it this way because I want to model something different, and I want that to come from a place of love, not judgment. Whew. Are we still friends? I hope so. That was a lot. Okay, if you have follow-up questions to any of the Post-it notes, send them my way, because I have a feeling this could get really interesting really quickly. If you also have a really specific question, like, yeah, but we're talking about out of town or in town, like, ask the follow-up questions. Let's dive deeper. I'm here for you. All right, let's move on to our second and last question before our fun big announcement today. I can't remember if I told you I have a fun big announcement, but we do have a fun big announcement. Okay, this is a great question too. Less Post-it notes, but just as exciting. This question says, quote, I don't have a great eye for aesthetics, so I've never been able to pinpoint what makes for a pretty table. I'd like to be able to have a beautifully dressed but simple to pull off table setting for my family on weeknights to make them feel loved and to cultivate a sacredness of a meal shared together. What is the secret to making a table look inviting and prepared? Parentheses, I have a long farmhouse style table for our family of 8. I want to come sit at your long farmhouse table for 8. It sounds wonderful. Okay, here are my thoughts on this question. The first thing this person mentioned was, I don't have a great eye for aesthetics, so I've never been able to pinpoint what makes for a pretty table. Number one, let's learn to figure out what you like. I can't dictate that for you. Beauty is definitely in the eye of the beholder. So my taste may not be your taste, may not be someone else's taste, but I would encourage you, when you see something and you think, man, that's pretty, stop and look at it. Like, really look at it. What about it is pretty? What do you like about it? I will speak from my perspective, which you do you. I love it when things elicit this feeling of peacefulness and calm and order and simplicity. That's beautiful to me. I have friends who are equally inspired and find beauty in more is more, and layers of things, and wild colors, and lots of texture, and all the things. That's beautiful for them. That's great. You need to define what it is that you find beautiful, just as like an exercise. Number 2, I love that you're looking for something that is beautifully dressed but simple to pull off, because this shows me you recognize that in order for this to be a weeknight habit, it does need to be simple to pull off. Nobody is going to make a custom tablescape with the good china and the crystal 5 nights a week for their family, because that's too much work. It's not sustainable. So I hear you asking for something simple and sustainable for every night, weeknight cooking. Love it. Love that is your goal. That's a very attainable goal. I want to address your verbiage of wanting to make somebody feel something when they look at your table. Hospitality is never a pursuit of trying to make someone feel something, because the truth is, we cannot make someone feel something. But what you can do is look at the table as an opportunity to express your love and care for the people that are going to sit around it. In this instance, your family. So when you shift your thinking from, oh, I want them to feel loved and cared for, they may, but also they may not. Shift your inner monologue to, I love my family so much. I love each one of them. I love my children. I love my husband. I'm so glad that we get to be in a room together and eat dinner. I'm going to express the way I feel about them by setting this table intentionally and making something beautiful for them. The pressure is off of you at that point. Whether they like it or not, you have expressed your love for them, and that's the heart of hospitality. So change that verbiage in your mind a little bit. And then my favorite phrase in this whole question is the idea of cultivating a sacredness of a meal shared together. You nailed it. You nailed it. Cultivating a sacredness of a meal shared together can be accomplished with the good china or with the paper plates. Meals shared together are always a really special thing, whether you're eating pizza on paper plates or roast chicken on good china. They're always really special. So what I hear you wanting to do is to honor the sacredness of that time together by making the table as beautiful as possible. I applaud you on that goal. The secret for me, and again, this is not an edict on what the right way to set a table is, but what I have learned for myself in order to make it very sustainable and very simple and very beautiful is to find 4 basic elements that I do every single time. The first one is a very simple dinner plate. My dinner plates are white because I believe white looks good at any season, any table, any situation, and also food always looks beautiful on white plates. The second element is everybody is going to need a napkin. 9 times out of 10 at my home, when we set the table for a weeknight meal, we're using paper towels, folded and put underneath the fork to the left of the plate. I own cloth napkins and I pull them out for just because, or maybe that 10% of the time when I'm not adverse to washing the napkins. But you're going to need a simple napkin, and don't get hung up that they need to be cloth. You are going to need some silverware, and again, when silverware and a plate and a napkin are lined up and put where they're supposed to be, to the left of the plate, to the right of the plate, and everything is straight and orderly, instantly you are communicating intentionality at the table. Even if it is a white plate, a folded paper towel, and a silver fork from the everyday silverware drawer. It doesn't need anything else to look intentional. The table is set. It is beautiful. And the fourth element, I find, if there is something that you can put in the center of the table that is functional, like a tray with a pitcher of water so people can refill, or a simple vase with some clippings from the shrub outside, or perhaps you're serving bread and you put the bread on the tray with the butter and a knife. Like some element in the middle of the table that is functional, but also because it's been set out with, the knife and the bread and the basket or whatever. Like it's functional. You're going to eat the bread, you're going to use the knife, you're going to use the salt and pepper or whatever. But because it's on, a tray in the middle of the table, it's beautiful, it's contained, it's orderly. It's, oh, look. I mean, it's just, I don't know what that quality is, but it has a quality about it that speaks to, I knew you were coming, I put this here, and now we're going to use it and enjoy it, and the table looks finished. So those are my practical, that's the baseline. That's all you need. And as far as knowing the right aesthetic, there's no such thing as the right aesthetic. I would start by saying use what you have and do it purposefully and do it consistently, and your table is going to look inviting. It just is. So I hope that answers that question. Again, feel free to pepper me with follow-ups. I'm sure there's more we could talk about there. Okay, last thing, really exciting. We're going to do something. And by we, I mean you and me. We are going to do something. I've been toying with this idea for a while. And I decided to pull the trigger even though we'll see. We'll see. Next week, we are launching a roast chicken challenge. Let me repeat that. Roast chicken challenge is launching next week. Okay, what's a roast chicken challenge? Roast chicken challenge is I'm going to roast a chicken every week for 6 weeks and show you here on Instagram in the video section, in stories. I want you to roast a chicken with me. One chicken every week for 6 weeks. Why? Because this is how you get good at it. I learned to roast a chicken a couple years ago. I roasted a chicken every week for lots of weeks until I could do it in my sleep, and I got really good at it. The only way to get good at something is just to learn by doing and get in there and do it. And so I'm going to be doing it alongside of you. I'm going to give you the recipe. I'm going to give you a list of things that you'll need. I'm going to give you links on where to quickly order that stuff that you need if you don't have it. I'm going to be showing you how I do all these different steps. I'm going to be answering questions that you have, like, okay, you said to do this, I did it, it turned out like this, what am I doing wrong? We're gonna have a dialogue about it. And the kind of fun twist is this challenge will end the week before Thanksgiving. If you are hosting Thanksgiving or preparing the turkey for Thanksgiving, roasting a chicken is like training wheels for roasting a turkey, because a turkey is basically a really big chicken. If you can roast a chicken, you can roast a turkey. It's just bigger. It's like the difference between changing a newborn and changing a toddler. It's basically the same idea. One's just really big. Like one of them, the diaper's this big, one of them, the diaper, whatever. That's how I feel when it comes time for Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, I know how to do this because I know how to roast a chicken. It's just a tiny little turkey. So 6 weeks. We're going to get good at it together. We're going to be ready for Thanksgiving by the end of it. I'm going to tell you what you need. I'm going to show that. Stay tuned on where that will be. I think I'm going to put it in a blog post, but I'll make sure you know where to find that. And then we're going to share it. So I will be on my channel sharing what I'm doing. And I would love for you to be on your channel showing me what you're doing. And I would love for you to tag this. We came up with a hashtag. Not as easy as it sounds. All the good, obvious ones were taken, and I kind of wanted this to be our own little hashtag. So I'm going to tell you the story. The hashtag is the roast chicken challenge. The roast chicken challenge. When I started the Hurley House Facebook page 6 years ago, Hurley House was taken. So I used the Hurley House. I really didn't even give it a second thought. when I set up, so then a couple weeks ago I set up my personal Facebook page, and my name was taken. Like, another Catherine Sasser has Catherine Sasser Facebook page, and so we were like, oh, what do we do? Well, I went with the Catherine Sasser, which makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. I hope you know me well enough to know that I would never refer to myself as the Catherine Sasser. That's like, ugh. But it was the Hurley House, so we went with the Catherine Sasser, and so now it's the Roast Chicken Challenge hashtag. I sincerely hope you're laughing with me. I sincerely hope you know that I do not take myself seriously enough to put the in front of my name, but now it's just become kind of like a little inside joke. So the hashtag is the Roast Chicken Challenge. So as you roast your chicken and I roast my chicken for the next 6 weeks, we're gonna share it, we're gonna tell our friends, and we're gonna prove to ourselves that we can do this, because listen, you can do this. And if you've ever wanted to try and learn, this is your time. This is your time. You can roast 1 chicken a week. You can. You're going to feed your family, you're going to feed yourself, you're going to learn a new skill. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best thing you've ever eaten, and I'm going to be here with you doing it, and I'll chime in and report every week, and we're going to have so much fun. And then we're going to turn around and it's going to be Thanksgiving. Side note, Thanksgiving is 6 weeks away, so let's all let that wash over us and try not to break out into hives. So that is all I have. 2 giant questions and a big announcement. As always, please submit your questions. There's a link in the profile. You can do it on the website. You can straight up just call the store. However you can get your question in, I want to hear it. I hope this has been as much fun for you as it has been for me. See you next Thursday at 10 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in.